practicing collective impact. And so that's another thing that in my role, trying to share with agencies and different people, so our government, other nonprofits, the companies in Charlotte. I'm in a really cool place where I get to speak to like the Bank of Americas and the Wells Fargos and all of these big agencies, but also grassroots agencies and then our government officials. But it takes all of us to make a difference. Like not one sector in our city can make a difference with the immense issues that we're facing. The cost of rent, the cost of living has increased tremendously. And a nonprofit can't solve that by himself. So a nonprofit has to work with the government. It has to work with companies, those big companies, small companies. It has to work with nonprofits. So as your small place in the corner, just understanding like who can I connect with to make a bigger impact, a collective impact, knowing that you can't do it by yourself. They can't do it by themselves. I can't do it by myself. So what are you good at? What are they good at? What am I good at? And how do we bring that together to solve problems in our city?
Jamese.
Hi.
Welcome to Empathy Led.
How are you?
I'm great.
Haven't seen you in a minute.
I know.
How's life?
What's
new?
Same old. New mom. Trying to be a good mom, a good wife, a good employee. That's about it.
Good. How's the little one?
He is good. 20
For our
months.
Audience, what's his name?
Yeah, Nolan. 20 months. He is, everyone asks, is he walking? The kid is running and jumping off things and talking our heads off. So he's really good. Having a great time being a mama.
So far, who is it taking much more after, you or your husband?
So he looks just like my husband, but he acts just like his mama. So
what does that mean?
Very determined, does not give up, very opinionated. But he's also very funny and very warm. But just the things that he does reminds me of me every day. And I'm excited about it because anytime we go out, they're like, ooh, he looks just like his dad. And I'm like, well, you know what? But he acts like me, so that's all good.
All right, so the funny, the determined Jamese, like, where does she come from? Tell us your story so that we understand how you became that person that you just described.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Charlotte, the west side of Charlotte. And so my whole family is here. I never thought I would move back to Charlotte, but here I am with a husband and a house and a child. So I guess we're here for the long haul, which is fine. I grew up surrounded by family. Grew up with a single mother. So my mom raised me and my brother by herself. Earlier in life, started off in church. So I was one of those people that went to church twice on Sundays and once on Wednesdays. And went with my grandparents. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, a lot of weekends, and then went to church with them all the time. And there, I started to do a lot of volunteer work as a young child. So I remember one of the ladies at church used to go to nursing homes. And I have no idea how this even happened, but I would go with her to nursing homes. And we would give out necklaces and bracelets to those in the nursing home. And then we used to do a lot of I guess it's not caroling, but singing. So like for Christmas, we would go sing at the nursing home. So my early memories of, just being in community and volunteering was then, like as a young child, going with this older church lady to nursing homes. So always had that instilled in me to give back, to help others, to have empathy. A long time ago, I also, back with my mom, was raised in a domestic violent household. So for 16 years of my life, the first 16 years of my life, was raised in a domestic violent household. And weirdly, that taught me a lot of empathy. Taught me, when I went to school, it was house was kind of like hell on earth, but had to put on a brave face when I went to school or somewhere else. And I just remember all the time I know people don't know what I'm going through, but can they give me a break? And I think that also just taught me empathy. You just never know what anyone's going through. And you never know, what their real story is. So to always just think the best of people and give them grace. So I'm also the first generation to go to college, first generation to do a lot of things. So That's been fun. I'm the oldest child with my mom and then the oldest grandchild on one side of my family. So it's been like a leading the way for all my younger cousins and my brothers and doing great things with them. So earlier in life, again, I've always volunteered, always been a people person. In high school, I was student body president. I was homecoming queen, but I think I got those things again because I was very nice. I was a cheerleader, a varsity cheerleader, and I think, when you think about cheerleaders in high school, you think about not the nicest girls, but I was very smart and I was very nice. So I do think that, that helped me a lot to get those accolades, student body president and homecoming queen. Then went to college, did my thing in college. Then landed back in Charlotte. My husband, Jordan, was like, we graduated college together. Okay. And he was like, I'm moving back to Charlotte. And being young and in love, no, I can't go without you. So I came back to Charlotte with him, went to grad school, thought that I was going to be a urban planner, but quickly realized that I didn't want to plan for places that I didn't live in. So how can I work with people and connect them with the people in power who is making decisions for their neighborhood? So that became my why, and kind of laid out the foundation for my career. So I have a master's in geography with a concentration in community planning. But I did what you call participatory action research. So that was, how do you get regular people involved in decision-making process? And so when I graduated college, I worked for Renaissance West Community Initiative for 4.5 years. So putting resident voice first and what they wanted their community to look like, and then making connections to make that happen. Now I'm at United Way of Greater Charlotte, Director of Community Initiatives, where we are a funder. Like, we give out money to organizations, but the cool thing about us is the residents of the neighborhoods that we are in, they make the decision on who to fund and how much to fund them. And they make the decision on what the priorities for their communities are. So I spend a lot of time talking to residents, getting to know what they need, and then again, making connections to bring those needs to their neighborhoods. I think that's
that's amazing. No, that was really good. That was really good. I mean, I feel like, I really sit here in the past 2 minutes feeling like I know you better, and this is not even the first time we interact. And I feel like there are so many of those nuggets that allow me to be like, oh, that makes sense now, that makes sense. No, I loved it. So one of my frustrations with philanthropy and nonprofit is that we go in thinking that we have the answer, thinking that we know best, and we don't involve the very people that we are trying to help, the very people that probably have all the answers that we are spending time, resource, money in trying to generate from thin air. So why is your model so unique? Because why is it not the norm to do what you guys do?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about United Way, and I love working for them and love that they've taken this approach to philanthropy. So some call it trust-based philanthropy. It's kind of a new thing that's happening and people are trying to grasp to. But when Charlotte ranked 50 out of 50 for upward mobility, I think we can all say the nonprofit space, philanthropy space is very generous in Charlotte. But when that came out, I think we had to take a look at what we're doing and understand it wasn't working. And so our approach is the residents in these neighborhoods are most proximate to the problem and have the answers of what they need. So instead of going into places and saying, this is what you need and doing for, it's kind of putting it different way and doing it with. So again, spending time with the residents and understand what are your needs, what are the problems, what are your assets in your community that we can continue to help grow, and letting them say that and then actually using their words to make our grant making process. So it's also not tokenism of, we're going to ask some questions, we're going to do a survey, and we're not going to do anything with what they said. We are actually, if they said, early education is very important for them. Okay, we're going to make our grant making process around early education and get other agencies who can come in to do early education with your students or your babies. And so again, listening to what they're saying and actually doing things with that information that they give us. So I think that makes the work that I do at United Way very different. It is a lot of work though. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it is very easy to have a grant making process, get volunteers to read applications and say, based on this application, we're going to grant you money. But this way, it does take a lot more time. Our residents, they work. So no, we might not get to talk to them from 9 to 5. We might need to go meet with them at 6 after they get off. Give them time to read applications, give them time to read these different things for them to make the best decision for their community. So that takes a lot of time. And I think if people don't have if organizations don't have the capacity or like the willpower to do it, it can be very daunting. So I always joke with you whenever I see you and say, I'm tired. I'm so tired. And I am, but I know that the work that I'm doing is making a difference. And I know I'm not doing for, but doing with, which is very important.
Very important indeed. I mean, I think even when we think about empathy, sometimes we talk about empathize. Like empathizing with someone is a very different thing that having an empathy for someone, right? Like I'm empathizing with you and with your situation. Yeah. So what are some of those other common practices in the philanthropic and nonprofit world that you all are moving away to really increase the impact and the likelihood of the outcomes that you are actually seeking to materialize? Yep.
So again, United Way gives out funding to other nonprofits who provide a program or service that residents want in their neighborhoods. And so one other piece of trust-based philanthropy is not making those nonprofits jump through many hoops to get the funding. So we try to have kind of the smallest application that we possibly can. Try to have the smallest or least amount of things they have to do to say if they're going to get the money or not. Again, working with residents, it does kind of extend that process. But at one point, our agencies are able to speak with residents directly to say, hey, like this is what I can provide your neighborhood. And they figure out if they're a good fit for each other. And so, again, making the process less cumbersome for those agencies who are applying. We also fund grassroots agencies, so agencies who have a budget of $250,000 and under. And grassroots agencies are also agencies that are closer to residents and closer to the problems in the neighborhoods that they're working in. And then we also just trust agencies to do what they say they're going to do. So if you say you're going to do this program, we trust that you're going to do that. Here's unrestricted funding for you to keep the lights on in your organization, for you to pay your staff, for you to buy notebooks for your program, whatever you need to make sure that that program or service gets to the neighborhoods. So those are also some other things that we do. Again, trusting the agencies that we fund that they're going to do what they say, and then also trusting and knowing that whatever residents say that they need is what they need. So making sure that we do what we can to provide that.
Yeah. As individuals, we look at our community, we look at our society, and we look at our world, and we just look at the immensity of the challenges that those communities and the people that surround us have to tackle. And at times we feel so powerless, right? So what should somebody like me, who is looking at all these things and is trying to make a difference, how should I be thinking about making a small contribution to advancing all the work that agencies like yours do?
Yeah, I love this question, and this makes me excited.
Good.
So practicing collective impact. And so that's another thing that in my role, trying to share with agencies and different people, so our governments, other nonprofits, the companies in Charlotte. I'm in a really cool place where I get to speak to like the Bank of Americas and the Wells Fargos and all of these big agencies, but also grassroots agencies and then our government officials. But it takes all of us to make a difference. Like not one sector in our city can make a difference with the immense issues that we're facing. The cost of rent, the cost of living has increased tremendously. And a nonprofit can't solve that by himself. So a nonprofit has to work with the government. It has to work with companies, those big companies, small companies. It has to work with nonprofits. So as your small place in the corner, just understanding like, who can I connect with to make a bigger impact, a collective impact, knowing that you can't do it by yourself. They can't do it by themselves. I can't do it by myself. So what are you good at? What are they good at? What am I good at? And how do we bring that together to solve problems in our city? So that's exactly what we do in my job, too, of giving out this funding, but also asking those agencies, what are you good at? What are you good at? And what are you good at? And how can you work together to do that? Or even if it's not, if you can't collaborate, just knowing another resource that might be beneficial to someone. I might be a tutoring program, but the family that I'm tutoring for, when I go to their house, I see that they don't have food. But I know that there is an organization that's in their neighborhood who gives out free food once a week that I can make sure they're connected to. So again, if collaboration doesn't make sense, because I don't think collaboration always makes sense for things, but just knowing what's around and who is around and having connections that can make differences. So again, it's collective impact. It takes all of us.
I love that. I love that. And I think at times that is the very obstacle. It's like we think that all of it has to fall on our shoulders or that we have to do it on our own. But there are so many agencies, and not just in the nonprofit world, like you said, governments, nonprofit, for-profit, all working together trying to solve this problem. It's really just about how do you leverage your gifts, your talents, your resources to make a contribution to something larger and to make a bigger impact.
Exactly.
Right? So I am a wealthy individual. I am not, but I am a wealthy individual.
Someday.
There we go. I'm a wealthy individual, and I'm really, really interested in how I can leverage my resources and my power and my influence to advance some of the bigger issues in the cities. And I feel like in your position, you probably have a better pulse than most on what the big issues in the cities are. Like, what are some of those big issues that as a collective and as individuals, we should be really trying to keep forefront and look for ways to contribute to?
I think United Way will be happy about this. I'll do a plug to them. If you are a wealthy individual and want to learn more about issues in our community, I honestly feel like United Way is a trusted agency in our city who has an ear to the ground and boots on the sidewalk to understand what is happening in our city. So I would encourage high wealth people to reach out to our resource development team at United Way to get in contact with them and to learn more about what we're doing and ways that they can plug in. But also, I don't know. I feel like there's so many issues happening in our city. I think, the biggest one that we're facing is people can't afford to live here anymore. And as someone who was born and raised in Charlotte, it's very sad. I'll also say that the work that I do is professional and personal because my whole family still lives here. So as Charlotteans, we've been here our whole lives, and I feel like my family is really getting pushed out and losing places to go. We've grown up in these neighborhoods that are now being gentrified and changing. And so, again, it is very personal, the issues that are going on in Charlotte. And I think we have to point out that the cost of living, the cost of rent, the cost of mortgage is astronomical. And the people who's been here or want to be here shouldn't have to leave just because their rents are increasing by $500, a month, every year, whatever. I don't know what the stat is, but so I think that is a huge issue that we have to all figure out. Our homelessness issue is increasing every day. Also, shout out to United Way. We are doing a Home for All initiative. So trying to figure out how do we change the landscape of the work that we do around homelessness. So again, any high wealth person, please reach out to someone at United Way to learn more about what we're doing and see how you can plug in.
Yeah. I think, and of course, those two pieces are connected, right? The fact that people can no longer afford to live here, and then the rising number of homeless and percentage of homelessness in the city as well. And I think this is, one of the fundamental things that you need is like roof above your head and food. Yes. I mean, like literally, and health, you know, like that's a very, very fundamental human need that needs to be solved. And I feel like at times we look at these issues as separate pieces, but like there's always ramification. Like what happens when somebody no longer has a roof above his head and becomes homeless? Like what are the other social ramifications? Because we feel like, okay, well, I don't want to get involved with this problem, but at some point it's gonna connect to something that you are interested in or that you care about or that affects you. So yeah. You were nodding your head. Can you expand a little bit? You probably can articulate that interconnectedness better than I can. So I'll let you do it.
So that is called social determinants of health. So all the things that you need to be a basic human interact with one another. So you just did an amazing example. So if I'm someone who's had a house and now my house is taken away, that's likely going to affect my health. That's going to affect my employment. That's going to affect if I have children who are at school, their education, and all of those things connect. So you can't tackle one issue without the other. Or you can't just be siloed. This is also for high wealth people, just to know. You can't just say, or I shouldn't even say high wealth people who want to donate to causes. I hear people sometimes say, oh, I just want a cause that focuses on women and children. That is perfectly fine. But just knowing that with women and children, housing is still very much a part of their lives, education, health, their built environment, their social context, all those social determinants of health still go to make that person whole. So I think when people, try to say, I only want to focus on food insecurity, okay, but yeah, that connects to other things. So just thinking broadly of how all those social determinants of health connect to make a person whole. So yes, that is very, very important to think about. And I'm so happy that you already know these things and can articulate them so well, because I don't think that we think about that. I think that people just think if people have one problem, that's their only problem. But it extends so far beyond that.
Absolutely. We already talked about like the work that you all are doing to connect with the people that are most proximate to the issues that nonprofits are trying to solve. But we also know that nonprofit themselves, with all the good intentions that they have, are really, really struggling to fulfill their missions. Like, what are some of those challenges that the nonprofits in our city and probably beyond are facing that, again, as a collective, we should try to figure out how to best support them and help them fulfill their respective missions?
Yeah, well, to people outside of the nonprofits, I would say to continue to make donations to those nonprofits that you like, or agencies who give out money to nonprofits. Always want to encourage people to continue. We are all philanthropists and can all give something. That. So continue to do that. Nonprofits need funding to continue to do the work. I'll also point out that, I think a lot of people look for nonprofits to solve these complex issues, but then want them to do it with what people call bubblegum and a Band-Aid or whatever that phrase is. So if our society wants nonprofits to solve these issues, they have to have funding to do it. And the thing about, philanthropy sometimes is if our economy goes through something, it's like the amount of funding comes into nonprofits, or people want to change their direction of what they want to fund. And that really affects these nonprofits who are on the ground doing great work. So as all of us, again, just continue to give money, time, treasure to nonprofits, join boards. Like, I think that's something that gets overlooked all the time. Every nonprofit has a board. So if there's something that you are very interested in, become a board member to help that nonprofit get the word out about their services, to bring in more income to their cause. So I think those are like the biggest things that we can all continue to do. And if always give money if you can, but even if you can't, like, can you give time? Can you go to a nonprofit that you are interested in and volunteer your time with them? But yeah, again, I just think nonprofits are looked at to solve these huge issues, but we don't get the support financially or even just getting the word out about who they are and what they do. So I think if we can do more of that, nonprofits will be in a better space.
I'm learning over the years that every time something annoys me, it's probably because I don't understand it well, and I should probably try to understand. So one of those things that really annoys me is that we have these nonprofits that are out to solve very, very, very complex problems. And in order to do that, they should be able to attract the best and the brightest minds in the world. Because again, the challenges that they are trying to solve are very complex. But yet, anytime a nonprofit is trying to pay someone the kind of salary that the best and brightest minds warrants, or is trying to put some budget around marketing, which every for-profit in the world understand that you can have the best product in the world, but it won't sell itself. It becomes a point of contention when it applies to nonprofit. Like there is a double standard, at least it seems from my vantage point, that I find so annoying because I have a branding and marketing agency. And every time we try to do some work with nonprofit, they don't have the budget for it. You know, people give restricted gift, which actually just gave me an idea recently. I'm going to start a fund for nonprofit, and I'm going to make a restricted gift for marketing.
Ooh.
Yes.
I'm sure they would love that.
Yes.
But I would encourage you to. I would also encourage unrestricted funding too. But yes, I see where you're going.
Please.
You're working with nonprofits who you want them to be able to do marketing things. So do that. Yes. But others, I do encourage unrestricted.
So I feel like now we touch on two things. Can we address the first rant that I went in of nonprofit abilities to attract and to pay the best and brightest mind, and the inability to do that because of the double standard that exists? And then we can touch about why it's important to give unrestricted gift to nonprofit to allow them to do their work.
Yeah. So you're speaking my language as career in nonprofit work, starting in nonprofit and, not making enough money to meet my needs as an individual with a house and a husband and all those things. It is very hard for a lot of people to go into the nonprofit space knowing that the pay is going to be little. And one of those reasons is because people give restricted gifts.
Oh, so they are connected.
Yeah, right. So they give restricted gifts, and it's like, I'm only going to give you this gift to do this program. But not understanding that to do that program, you have to have a staff part of that. So their salary has to be somewhere in that in order to make that program run and be successful and give the outcomes that funder is asking for. I told you I was very opinionated, so one of my opinions is I also feel like when you were talking about the amount that nonprofits can pay their staff and like attracting the best, I opinionally feel that anyone in the nonprofit space could run circles around anyone in any other sector in our society. The amount of hats that someone in a nonprofit has to wear in order to move the mission, in order to make things happen. If I actually did my resume with all the things that I've had to learn in my nonprofit career, it would look like I am a CPA, I'm a program director, I'm a volunteer coordinator, I'm marketing. But in these roles, we have to pick up all of these skills in order to make it happen. And so not being able to pay a nonprofit employee the same amount they might get in corporate to do one of those things frustrates me too. So giving unrestricted gifts to nonprofits help them keep their lights on. It helps them pay their staff the salaries that they want to pay them. Again, it helps them buy the materials to do those programs. And so I think that sometimes when people, think about restricted gifts for just one certain thing, again, they just don't think about all that goes into that. So to do this program, my marketing person has to market this program. The program director has to run it. The CEO has to work with the program director to make sure it's all of these moving pieces, and it's not just one thing. So when you give $50,000 to this one program, opening your mind to like, what does it actually take to run that program? And so giving unrestricted gifts helps nonprofits do that. And it helps them be limbo in how they spend, how they spend the money to make the program or service happen.
All right, you heard it here. Stop giving unrestricted gifts and allow nonprofit to be able to attract and retain the best and brightest, because they are out to solve and tackle the most complex, important challenges in our communities and our society.
Yep.
I
will stand on that hill to the day I die.
That's the end of the PSA. All right. So, and I hope I'm not wrong about this, but it seems traditionally that the nonprofit world is dominated by somewhat middle-aged white women. Is that accurate, first of all, before...
I don't know the stats, but yes.
All right.
The nonprofit space is a very white space.
Okay. So I want to understand how someone like you, a Black woman in that space, like in your mind, look, first of all, how has it been for you navigating those spaces? Let's stop there before I compound the question.
I just feel like I am in a really, really cool place again. I also say that my work is very full circle. So I was born and raised in Charlotte. I went off to college and never thought I was coming back to Charlotte. Like, I honestly thought I was my plan was to live in Arlington, Virginia and work in DC. Like, I was gonna make all the money in the world. I was gonna be on Capitol Hill doing something. And then I came back to like, I'm a planner, like to the T, and like that was my life goal. And of course that didn't happen, and I'm glad it didn't. But so I say that my work is very full circle. So when I was in graduate school, I was able to work in literally all of the neighborhoods in Charlotte who I grew up in or knew about or had family or friends in. But all of these neighborhoods that had mostly Black residents who are now changed, Optimus Park, Cherry, Belmont, Druid Hills now. I spent a lot of time in these areas who we are about to see a lot of change happen in or have already seen a lot of change happen in. And so it was really cool to me because like I went and got this education, I got this knowledge and was able to bring it back to my community. And so when I was working in these neighborhoods, I knew a lot of people already because either my family knew them or they were family or, different things. So it was very easy for me to navigate the nonprofit space because I was able to connect to the people we were trying to serve. Like it was very easy and natural, again, because I was born and raised here, but because I also had empathy. And it's like, I know what it's like to be in these to live in these neighborhoods. I was a single mother, so we didn't live in the most affluent places. Yeah. I can tell you stories about, how I was bused in 5th grade and saw a different Charlotte and Ballantyne compared to West Charlotte, where I went to school at. So I had a lot of empathy around that of if we want to help people stay in their homes and help them have a say in like what their community looks like and what changes are coming, you have to have empathy for that. And you have to be able to literally walk sidewalks and knock on doors to build relationship with people, to understand what those needs are, and then try to figure out how can you work with them to solve them. And so I did that for years in graduate school. And again, I told you I wanted to be an urban planner. So I thought I was going to work for the city of Charlotte and be this planner. But then turned to nonprofit because with a nonprofit, I can work closely with residents. And again, my why is connecting them with the people in power. Mm-hmm. So I went into the nonprofit space and literally at Renaissance West, I had the best job ever when I was there the whole time. But when I started, I was community engagement. My job was literally to walk the neighborhood. That is what I did all day. And I talked to residents and I could tell you where a resident lived, who their child was, where they worked, because I was able to just take time to build real relationships with them and figure out what issues were, figure out what assets were, and then work with them to help make those changes. So I also know that I was able to do that because, again, born and raised in Charlotte, but also as a Black woman, I was able to relate to the people that we were trying to serve. And so I think I'm not being cocky, but I am really good at what I do.
So
And I take a lot of pride and passion, and my work means a lot to me. And so for me, it's not been hard to navigate the nonprofit space, because I think if anyone came to me with the question, now if I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know, and I'll go find it. But if anyone came to me in the nonprofit space, if an opportunity was presented, they know that I'm going to work I'm going to have the best due diligence to work with them to make change of what we're trying to do. So I don't know. So for me as a Black woman, it has not been that hard. Now, I don't know what's next in my career in the nonprofit space, like moving up to a higher position, a COO or CEO. But I do know that being in the nonprofit space as a person of color can be daunting in a very white-dominated field. And so I'm going to shout out someone else. They're going to listen to this podcast and be like, Jamese, you didn't tell us that you were doing this. But I'm in Black Social Capital Institute. That is for Black people who work in nonprofits who want to lead a nonprofit. So I'm doing this cohort to learn more about what does it take to lead a nonprofit? What does it take to lead a nonprofit as a person of color? And they pair you with a mentor, but then just give you the tools needed to just be able to navigate, such a white space. But also understanding that nonprofits play a very pivotal role in our communities. So anytime someone of color says, hey, Jamese, I'm interested in nonprofits, I will do anything that I can to make the connections, to encourage them to do a career in nonprofit work, because I do think that we need more people of color in the field, and we need more people of color leading these nonprofits and making these decisions that affect our neighbors.
Yeah. I mean, I think we already touched on, how challenging it is for people as professional in the nonprofit space. So what is your typical advice to a young person? And one of the things that I really love about young people, I spent a decade on Wingate University campus working in the marketing department, and I built a social media team with students. So I interacted a lot with them. And the thing invariably that I love about them is how idealistic they are, right? The way they think about the future and how they want things to change and how impatient they are about that change has always been something that really inspires me and really energizes me. So naturally, nonprofit is a place that they feel attracted to. And I think a lot of them end up not taking that path because of all the things we talked about, right? And this is what I want to do, but it's not going to pay well. Parents are probably not supporting that path either because of everything we just discussed. So what is your typical advice to a young person who's thinking about a career in nonprofit and philanthropy?
My advice to anybody, give nonprofits a try, do the interview process, and negotiate. There's always room for negotiation. And I think people don't know that. But the power of negotiation. So again, when I first started my nonprofit career, the salary that was given to me, I really wanted to work at this organization. So it was a weighing, can I get by on the salary? Yes, you can. Might be a little tight, but how do I negotiate this? And so I did. It was, I'm going to take this position. I negotiated the salary as high as I could get it. But next year, we're going to have to reevaluate this. I'm going to show you what I can do. I'm going to give my best foot forward, but I'm going to need to make more money in order to stay. And I was able to do that. And each year, increase my salary, and then moved to a different nonprofit and was able to continue to increase that. So I also want to point out that there are nonprofits that pay well. So also telling people to do their research. If the money is a big part of what you need in your life, which for a lot of people it is, research nonprofits and look at what their average salaries are. And you will really be surprised in a range of salaries nonprofits can provide. If you really want to work for a nonprofit and the salary doesn't meet your expectations, if you can, I would say to still try it. Cut back on some things that you need to, but start to give that nonprofit your, treasure and talent, but also build your own to figure out how to move up and do something else after it. So what skills can you hone in on in the nonprofit that you start? What skills can you build upon? And then how can you move to another space that may be able to pay you more to continue to give those skills back to the community, but also refine those skills? So I think that's my biggest advice is just give it a try. I do know that I go to sleep every day knowing that the work that I'm doing is making a difference. And that matters to me. And so for people that matters for, I've never worked in corporate, so I don't have anything to compare. But and I do think that you can find fulfillment in corporate, but again, for that nonprofit, for me, going to sleep every day, knowing that I am making a difference, was a big thing for me too. So I know that doesn't pay in money, but that does pay in, my self-satisfaction and the goals I had for myself.
Yeah. So by virtue of nonprofit attracting a lot of young people, it means then that you are probably leading many of them. Ish? No?
Say it again.
I say by virtue of nonprofit attracting a lot of people, young people, it probably means that you are leading many of young people in your team. Do you have a lot of young people in your team?
Funny thing is I don't. So I'll also point out that I am pretty young, but I feel like I have an old soul. So I don't think anyone knows. Like when I tell people my age, they're like, what? And I'm like, hopefully I don't look, older, but I do. I act like a 80-year-old woman sometimes. So I can admit that. I do have younger people on my team. I have an AmeriCorps program that I run that is, most of them are like kind of just getting out of college or college age. But my core team, most of them are older than me.
That's interesting. So
I want to touch on those two dynamics because one of the things that I really want to explore with this podcast is leadership, right? I feel like they come in different form and shape and with their different challenges. So what is it about young people that leaders are struggling to understand and therefore create the current narrative that you hear they are lazy, they're entitled, all the things that I don't agree with. But what do they not understand about these young people that they should if they want to get the best out of them? And then I want to touch on the dynamic of leading people that are older than you, because I'm sure that's also has its own set of unique challenges.
Yes. I was just talking to one of my coworkers last week about this, but if you think about our workforce, you have boomers, you have Gen X, you have millennials, and Gen Z. That is 4 generations in one office right now. So I'm trying to really explore, how do you work with 4 generations? With boomers being on one end and Gen Z being on the other. How do you do that? And I don't know the answer to that yet, but it is something that I'm going to start exploring.
Yeah.
But understanding one another. I love Gen Z because they just don't take any mess. This is my work hours, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to find work-life balance. And I love it. I'm just go you. And so with my team, with the younger folks that I work with, for one, like you said, they have so many ideas. And I do think in the nonprofit space, they're able to explore those ideas because I always try to lead with the yes whenever I can. So if they want to do something, how can I say yes to this? We might need to tweak some things, but how can I give you a yes so you can explore that and that idea can take off in some kind of way? So I would say that I do that with all of my staff, the younger and older staff. Yeah. So again, their ideas felt valued and heard. Also giving them opportunity for professional development. So what are your goals? What are your career goals? What are your personal goals? And how can I help you get there? Which also just, I feel makes people, again, feel valued in the workspace. They know that I care for them beyond professional. I want to see you do whatever you want to do after your time here, or want to put you on a good trajectory. One thing that I recently did with one of our AmeriCorps members is one of the members is serving with us for this year, but is in school to be an accountant. And so at United Way, we work with all these companies in Charlotte. So I asked a colleague, like, who is our contact for the CPA firm that I can connect our AmeriCorps member with? And it happened. So our AmeriCorps member hopefully will be able to do an internship with them. But again, I know what this member wanted. I know it might not be in the nonprofit space, but after our conversation, she learned that as a CPA, there is a very great space for you to work with nonprofits. So again, just really just trying to get to know the people who work with me and try to help them build their goals and what they want to do in life. And those ideas that they have, again, trying to lead with the yes. Yeah. So some things are like out of this world crazy and we cannot do. But what parts of this idea can we do and try to like build something else on?
I love that so much. I mean, I really, really love that. And I think it applies for all ages. You know, I feel like it takes courage to come up with an idea, and to voice it. Yeah. And for that idea to just be shut down outright is crushing for the individual, but I think for the organization as well, you're gonna miss out on many good ideas because people no longer feel safe or compelled or encouraged to come forth with good ideas. Yeah. So I really, really love that. And yeah, I think that is probably somewhere in the empathetic leadership rule book, a principle, which by the way, I'm trying to compile, like what are those things that all empathetic leaders do? And I feel like this trying to lead with a yes is probably one of the principles that need to live in that list somewhere.
I agree.
All right, so let's talk about then the dynamic of leading older people.
Yep, and so another fun thing about me, I don't know if I can cuss on this, but I literally worked my ass off in my 20s, like, to build a name in the nonprofit space and to really just do good work and to really hopefully make positive change that residents wanted to. And so I've been able, like I said earlier, I feel like I've been able to really, I have goals in like my career path and I've been able to reach those again, because I put a lot of work in my 20s of the long hours, making authentic relationships, networking, all of those things. So in my role now, I manage 3 like core folks. 2 of them are older than me. 1 is a few years younger. And then I have an AmeriCorps program that I run, and AmeriCorps has up to 8 members. And some of them are older than me too. So it's always fun. But again, I also told you that sometimes I act like a 80-year-old lady.
So really, are they older than you?
I think they're probably younger than me. Like I'm probably older than them, and not mentally in that way, but like internally. Yeah. So they're probably looking at me like she is. And so in order to do that in my 20s, I had to work closely with people that were older than me. And in my 20s, I was always in spaces with people that were older than me. No matter what civic thing I did, what jobs I held, I was always the youngest in the room. Yeah. So I think that just also helped me just work with people of different generations or ages. So it came natural to me. So leading folks who are older than me, I've worked in these kind of environments before. So I give them what they need. They give me what I need. Like, you have a contract to do this job. Like I tell all of my staff, like when they first got hired, you have my trust. Like, you have it up front. Now, if you break it, it's going to look a little different. I might have to have some words. But starting off day one, you have my trust. Yeah. And I trust you to do your job. And I trust you to do what you say you're going to do. And I think for both people, older and younger than me, that resonates. So as an older person, like, yeah, I've been doing this work for decades, probably longer than you, So to trust that they know what they're doing. We did a hiring process. You gave me your resume. We did multiple interviews. And you've proven yourself to be capable of doing this job. In your 90 days or whatever, you've showed that you can do this job. So you have my trust. Go do your job. Yeah. And so that's really how I'll lead my team, is just do it. Yeah. And whatever ideas you have, come back and let's talk about it.
Does it ever come with a tinge of, I don't know if insecurity is the right word, of like they're older, they are maybe more experienced, and therefore as a leader, because I feel like a lot of the times leaders get in trouble because there is this assumption, and sometimes it's it's a self-assumption that I should know everything about everything. And if I don't know the answer, then they might think that I'm not qualified enough for this role. Like, do you ever wrestle? No.
No. Like, I will tell you in a heartbeat, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that many people need to learn how to say that. I also tell my team, this is related but not related, they are very forward-facing, front-facing in our work. They're in our communities working with residents. So when I hired them, Junior, I told them my biggest pet peeve is don't make things up. If you don't know the answer, you say, I don't know, and then we find the answer. But don't go tell people that you are the master of all these things or like the expert if you're not, and that's okay. We cannot be experts at everything. So that was one of my things with all of my staff of like, if you do not know the answer, you do not make up an answer. We come back and we figure it out. You tell that person, you'll come back with an answer later. And I'm the same way. For example, I had a one-on-one with my boss, and she was asking me a question about something. And I was like, I don't know. Like, let's bring the staff person who is closer to the work in here and let them tell you. And that's what we did. And so I asked my staff to come in to my one-on-one and talk to my boss about what they've been doing because I couldn't answer the questions. And like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can, because what does that give me? Like, I'm going to be making up lies about things. I'm going to be given inaccurate information, and that's not going to help anything. So I will always say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if I can figure it out, I'll figure it out and come back and let you know.
I love that.
I love that. I mean, I think there is a level of humility that has to come with being a leader. And I feel like that's one of those things that I think naturally empathetic leaders also have. There's a humility that comes with you cannot and do not know everything. And you have a team for that very reason, that people bring different strength and gift and knowledge to the table. So I want to close with two questions. The first one is, how do you hope those who work with you or have worked with you describe you as a leader?
I thought about this. I want people who currently work with me, who have ever worked with me, I like to make connections. I hope that I've made connections for people to do what they want to do, especially my staff. And I tell them all the time, you're not going to work with me forever. But what I hope is that one day, years later, that when you think about all of the people who's managed you, that you look at me and say, she really cared for me professionally and personally, and she helped me get where I wanted to go. I think if people can say that about me, like, I'm golden.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my biggest thing of making connections. And I'm very goal oriented. So if someone has a goal, how can I help you achieve that goal? And if I can do that, yes, that's the best thing that anyone can say.
There is something about human beings, like we are so unpredictable, but we are also so predictable. And one of the things that I always say to leader and try to remind myself is that if you care about people, they respond in very predictable ways, right? It's like, sometimes we make this like, how do I get the best out of them? As if it's like a science that need to be, if you care about people and you show them that you have their best interest in mind and that you have a plan for their personal and professional growth, they respond in very predictable ways. And so I love that. So then the last question then is, it's clear that you are driven by purpose and with a clear why. So when all of that is said and done, how do you hope the world is transformed as a result of the work that you've been doing and your contribution to it?
I hope, my biggest hope, again, is that regular people that live in regular neighborhoods who for centuries have not been able to elevate their voice. One thing I hate when people say they don't have a voice. They do have a voice.
Yeah.
But how do you help elevate that? I want to have a way, again, for people who hold power to be able to share that power with people who they are making decisions for. Is that a huge task? I think so. But if I could do something to figure that out, of how do you bridge that gap? How do you work with regular people, get their input, and then actually do something with their input? So again, not tokenism of let's do the survey and then move away. No, how do you ask them for their input, take their input, do something with it, and then come back to them and say what you did with their input.
Yeah.
If I could make some kind of system for all of our people in power to do that with regular people in all aspects of our life, I think I would be a very happy person.
Good. So I actually lied. As you were talking, I feel like I have one last question, and I think this is the last one. You were recently recognized as a Charlotte 40 under 40.
Yes.
And for someone who came back to the city to help elevate the voices of the people in your neighborhood, to try to support and help the communities that you consider yours, like what does that recognition mean to you?
Oh my God, Junior. It's so funny. Again, I'm goal oriented. So the 40 under 40 list was always a goal of mine. And I never imagined that I was going to get it at 31. I thought it was going to be closer to 40. And so I am never really that proud of myself. It's okay, Jamese, you did this, move on. Pat yourself on the back for 2 seconds. Time to do something else.
Yeah.
But this is one of those that I am very, very proud of myself. I'm also very proud that not a lot of nonprofits make that list. So to represent nonprofits in that space also just makes me smile. But I think the most important thing, and we didn't talk about this much, is I'm a new mom. So it's I am very intentional about being a good mom to my son. And so balancing being a new mom and still doing good work in the community has been very important. So to get that award 20 months after having a baby, I think also just makes me very proud. And I don't know what they're going to have us do. Everyone's are you doing a talent or a speech? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to have us do, but I always like to shout out the mothers who are in the workforce, making it happen and coming home and making it happen. So I get very excited. That was one of the goals that I really wanted out of my career, and I got it. So
terrific. Well, I think I couldn't think of a more deserving person for that recognition. And on behalf of our city, our community, I thank you for your work. I thank you for your leadership, and I thank you for your bridge building work.
thank you. And thank you for having me be here and recognizing that I do have a lot of empathy and a lot of things. So I appreciate being here. This was very fun.
Good. Thank you.